Welcome to the Keep Yours podcast, where we'll help you decode the complex financial system so you can better understand how to thrive within it. This is where you'll learn strategies and life hacks to stay out of debt, claim your financial power, and keep what's yours. Here's your host, David Bradshaw.
Citizens of the world, welcome back to another Keep Yours podcast, where we try and keep a few more dollars in your wallet so you can spend them on the things you like to, or save it so you don't have to work anymore. So today we are talking about budgets and goals, and this is the Bottom Line series where I did a whole podcast that's an hour long on budgets and goals that goes through it in detail. Feel free to go back and listen to that one, but here's the highlights. So when we're talking about creating budgets and goals, the first thing we got to do is create a budget. So how do we do that? So the last podcast we talked about creating a starting point, which is writing down what you got and what you owe and the payments that you owe on those things. So we take that information and now we're going to go create our budget. So our budget is going to say, okay, what do I make each month? What am I going to spend each month? A budget's actually your goal, right? So if you have no budget, then you just spend what you spend, you make what you make, and there's a delta. And that delta means that you could be spending more money than you make or less money than you make. And if you spend less money than you make, then you have extra money every month. And if you spend more money than you make, you're going into debt each month and going into more and more debt. And the more debt you go into, the more debt you're going to end up in, because most of the time that debt has a very high interest rate and it's going to take you a long time to pay off. And for a lot of us, we discussed the goal of just getting to zero, getting out of all of that debt that we've obtained over time. And when I say get out of debt, I'm referring to everything except your house and your car on what your car is worth. And I prefer that you actually don't owe as much on your car as it's worth, but we start where we are. So the best thing we can do is do a monthly assessment. So the budgets aren't fun for any of us necessarily, with the exception of this Marie Kondo idea of cleaning up your life, only leave the things in it that bring you joy. If you do the same thing financially, if you just cut out things that either necessarily don't bring you joy or aren't good for you. So in the large part, like it may seem like Starbucks brings you joy, because at the moment that you get it and you start sucking down that sugar with caffeine, it puts a smile on your face. But when you crash 2 hours later, that's not really bringing joy. So that's more like some instant gratification with some later ramifications that aren't necessarily good for you. So maybe if you see that you're spending a lot of money at Starbucks, then you can say, hey, that's not really bringing me joy. I'm just doing it for instant gratification purposes. And oftentimes we do a lot of different pieces for instant gratification. So budgets are good for us in the sense that they can give us a reference for where we are, an opportunity to get us where we want to be, and the ability to see where we're spending our money. Typically, what I recommend everyone does, if you've never done this, if you're starting from scratch, and especially if you have debt and need to really understand your finances, then you should keep a journal. A daily journal of every single penny that you spend every month, so that you know when you do it. And in fact, I would get a little tiny black book or brown book or red book or whatever color book you want, but a little tiny one that you can carry around with you. And every time you pull your wallet out to spend money, or every time you're online where you've already stored your credit card, so all you have to do is 2 clicks, you got to write that down. And just the process of writing it down, you probably won't have to come back and see it again. But also it puts one more step in your thinking process of where am I spending money? And every time I'm about to spend money, I'm asking myself, do I need to? Do I want to? Is it bringing me joy? Is it within my budget? And it's hard to go back and do that if you've never done the exercise. And the exercise is somewhat tedious. It is. Writing down every time you spend any money. I went to the gas station. Got to write that down. I went to the grocery store. Here's how much I spent. I went and had drinks with a friend. I went out for dinner. I went out for lunch with a coworker. Every single time I'm writing it down. Oh, here's my car payment. Here's my rent. Those are the big ones. But what are all the other things that I'm spending money on that maybe aren't in front of me? So the other purpose of this is to put all of the things you're spending money on in front of you so that you can look at them. Because if we're trying to identify places where we can save money, we need to know what we have to look at to begin with. How do I tell you where you can go save money if I don't know where you're spending any money? But we might look at a phone plan and you go, oh, I have an unlimited plan with everything. It's great. I spend $120 a month. Oh, hey, maybe you could find some friends and get on a group plan and spend $40. Oh, I've got a cable bill that's $100 or even $200 a month. I see wrapped up packages from Comcast now. People spending $200 a month for internet and cable. When you could just kill the internet, find the cheapest cable deal, go with that one. It's probably fast enough anyway. And hack other people's subscriptions. Ask to borrow them. Can I borrow your Hulu account? Can I borrow your HBO account? Can I borrow your Netflix account? Borrow accounts. Use YouTube for free. Figure out different ways to go out and not spend money. Go out, don't drink. That'll save you a bunch of money. But until we know where our money's going, it's hard to stop putting it there. And again, remember, I'm not the guy who tells you where to spend your money. You spend the money on things that bring you joy and you happiness. I'm the guy who does tell you don't spend more money than you make because that's bad for you. Because that means you are now required to work for somebody for a very long time to repay that money. It's the most expensive money that you'll ever spend. So the beginning budget is what we have coming in each month and where we are spending it. So that's where we're going to start with. What do we have for income? What do we have for expenses? Those expenses being what you wrote down you just spent and confirming that with your bank account and your credit cards. So goals become the second thing. Once we know where the money is going, we can make choices around our spending. So we can decide where we're going to cut back on things that don't bring us joy and potentially where we're even going to spend more money. Because we could say, oh my goodness, I'm wasting so much money every month on this car payment so I can drive around a Mercedes. I could go trade that in right now and instead of paying $800 a month, pay $300. And I still have a car I can get around in. And then I have an extra $500 a month. And I'm going to spend $200 of that on me. And I'm going to save the other $300. But if you don't know where that money's going, it's hard to know to go do that to save it. So there are opportunities that exist to save money today, save money tomorrow. But if you're not focused on seeing them, then the odds are that you won't see them. And if you don't have a goal and a reason, then it's going to be really hard to basically have discipline in areas where you might not have otherwise. Reasons are very important. The reason why we have our goals is important. And especially when the goal might be counter to our natural inclination on how we like to treat money. Some of us are spenders, but some of us want to be able to spend later in life too if we're spenders. So we can't do all the spending now because then we won't be able to do any spending later. So maybe for a spender, saving is a way of just deferring when I'm going to spend. And if that's the way you need to look at it, no problem. Do it. Budgets don't have to be limiting. They're just a tool that can actually empower you. Because you can go, I'm in control of this. This is what I'm doing. And that allows me to have this extra money. And if you're like me, then you probably don't necessarily want to retire early. Like, I don't have any desire to retire when I'm 50 and do nothing, play golf all day. That's it. Sit around and talk. No. I like working. I like doing things productive. But maybe when I'm 50, I'd like to be at the point financially where I don't have to work somewhere I don't want to work. And for most Americans, we work somewhere we're not happy working at. We're not doing something that brings us joy and happiness into our lives as our job. So maybe not spending money now and saving that money and investing that money is a way for me to long-term work where I want to work, not where I have to work. Right? The other way that I like to look at So if you have debt, and especially credit card debt, but student loan debt certainly, any debt with a high interest rate, any debt that's basically not a car and a house and a reasonably priced car, any other debts are typically very expensive. And so having those debts means that you are promising your future earnings to repay those, which basically means you're working for somebody else. I don't like working for someone else. That's like going to work for free. Except for instead of it going to your employer, it's going to a bank, which everyone seems to hate, but no one seems to want to do much about. If you hate your bank, if you hate any bank, you don't have to protest in front of it. Just take your money out. It's the best protest you can do. Go put it into a community credit union near your house. That's the best thing that you can do if you want to protest big banks. So being in debt is basically telling your future self, I don't care about you. You're going to work. I'm having fun today. You're going to do the work later. And it should be the opposite, because your future self is older. And let me tell you, things happen as you get older. None of them good except for wisdom. Physically, not going to get better. Mental cognition, not really going to get better. And the reason they say youth is wasted on the young is because your future self is not going to be as strong. It is not going to recover as well. It is not going to want to work as many hours. So don't make your future self have the burdens of your debt. Instead, do the opposite. Get rid of those burdens for your future self and instead create opportunities for your future self to not have to necessarily work. So that's the way that I like to think about it when I'm creating a budget. I like to put my future self and give him a seat at the table and be like, future self guy, what do you think? And future self guy always says, save more money. Invest more money so I don't have to work so hard. So you don't have so many worries. That's what future self says. Okay, so I don't really prefer the way this is phrased, but it is what it is. Only you can change your spending. It's true. I can't change it for you. No one else is going to change it for you. Now, if you end up in bankruptcy, that'll change it for you if you go that far. So for you to change your spending, you're going to need a reason. And as I just said, if you need a reason, if you can't come up with any reasons, then get your future self at the table and have your future self give you a reason. Because I don't want to have to work so hard when I'm older is your future self's reason. If that's the only one you got, that's fine. Do it because then you're doing it for yourself. But a lot of times we got better reasons. Way better reasons. Family reasons. Other reasons that really resonate with us. Children reasons. Independent reasons. Don't like my job reasons. Write down those reasons. Literally write them down with your budget because that's your why. And why matters a lot because none of us are perfect. We're all going to fall somewhere upon the way. None of us are going to stick to our budget 100%. So once you see in front of you where your money's being spent and the income that you have, you get to decide what behaviors you need to change, where you're spending money that you shouldn't be spending money. Those are your choices. I cannot make those for you. I can help you with suggestions on where you might save money along the way. But it is your choice whether or not you eat at home, whether you pack a lunch or whether or not you want to go out, whether you want to drive a brand new car or a used car. I can make suggestions. You have to make the choices. And a lot of times you should just ask yourself why these things are important. So when it comes to material possessions, here's the most fundamental thing I can tell you. None of it is yours. It's all borrowed. You don't get to take any of it with you when you die. Pharaohs tried to bury themselves with gold. Guess what? Gold's still here. They made themselves mummified. The wrappings are still here. Your bones are still here. None of the things that you acquired in your lifetime are going with you. So they're not yours. You just get to borrow them. So how many things do you want to borrow so that you can work for those things? New things become old things. Precious things become, who cares? Your brand new car will one day be smashed and sold for scrap. It's okay. It's just stuff. But realize that. How much time do you want to spend working just for stuff? So you figure out things you don't need or things that you can hack. So I wouldn't tell you to not spend money on clothes if you're really into clothes. Instead, what I might say is, be patient. Wait for the discounts. Wait for the coupon codes. Buy used. That way you're still doing the thing you want to do, but at a much lower cost. So I like driving a decent car. So I bought myself one, but I didn't buy a new one. I bought one 3 years old. Half off. Let somebody else pay for half of my car for the first 3 years. I'm going to drive it for 10 years. And then I'm going to sell it to somebody else and they're going to drive the rest of it. And that in between is the nice sweet spot where I won't spend that much money on a car. But if you have to buy a new car, you're going to spend a lot more money. Once you have your goals, once you've decided this is what you want to do, you need to share them. And there's specific reasonings for this. And it goes into partly how we learn and partly how we stay committed to things. So we learn better in groups because we vibe off of the group in multiple ways. We see other people learning, which makes us want to learn. We have other people's experiences to draw from, which help us learn from different perspectives. But when it comes to the social contract, when you put out there in the world that this is what I want to do, what you're really asking people, and you can even ask them directly, and especially if they don't share your same views. If they're not trying to be thrifty and you're trying to reduce your expenses, then you may need to have a different conversation with them about supporting you. But the social contract's important because what you're saying to all of your friends and family when you put this out there could be, but essentially is, what you're saying is, I'd like you to support me with this. This is important to me. I'm putting it out there because I would like you to help hold me accountable to it. So if I tell you that my goal is to get out of debt and I have a bunch of credit card debt, and that is my goal, and I tell you that, and then you say, hey, let's go out, and we go out, I expect that you don't think that I'm going to spend a bunch of money on drinks while we're out because I'm trying to save that money. So I'm asking you, my friend, and my family to be respectful of the decisions that I'm making and be supportive. And if you see me falling off, if my goal is to save money and pay off my credit cards, and I decide I'm going to go look at new cars this week, then I would please appreciate it if you would tell me, hey, remember your goal? Remember you're trying to save that money, right? And support me in it. And that's what you get. The social contract, you get support. And also, now you have accountability from your friends and family. And if you're that friend or family, then try to support that person. And if you're the person who's putting out the goal, ask for that support directly. Please support me in this. This does mean that I might not be able to spend as much money on eating out or drinking out or drinking in general or going to events. I might have to curtail some of that this next year because I'm trying to pay off some of my debts. It doesn't mean I don't want to see you. It doesn't mean I don't want to go have fun. It doesn't mean I'm not going to go to any events. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to see you or try and enjoy our time together. What it does mean is I'm going to cut out some of the more expensive things so that I can repay this debt and ask for family and social support. That's very important, the social contract. That's the breakdown. That's how simple creating your budget can be. But that first step, writing it down, everything for the month, that's the hard part. That's the grind to get through to get there. And this is why you need that reason. The reason that you are going to change your life. It could literally just be your future self. It could be that you're tired of knowing that every month a lot of the money you make just goes to pay interest to some big bank and you're tired of working for somebody else. That's a damn good reason to make some changes in your life. And if you've run up the debt, you got to pay it back. And there's no simple ways. There's no simple, easy debt repayments. So the bottom line is you get to set your budgets. You decide what you're going to spend money on. You set your goals, and then you put it out there with the social contract. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time on Keep Yours.
Thanks for listening to the Keep Yours podcast. If you like what you've heard, head on over to iTunes to subscribe and leave us a review. This will help us reach more listeners, grow the show, and keep putting out more episodes like this one. Check out show notes and more resources at www.keepyours.org. See you next week.